Lesson 4.7, Feature Writing, Selecting and Organizing Your Quotes. So when you're working on a feature story, what do you do once you have your interview all done and you have them all transcribed and you have your Google Doc here like this? Make sure you've labeled who said what so you know, and have that all in one Google Doc. As you can see here, I've labeled who said what, and I have all my interviews written out here like this. What you need to do now is read through all of your transcribed interview, and you're going to have to start deciding, what are you going to directly quote? What are we going to hear from these people directly in quotation marks? What would be better paraphrased? What would be better you summarizing in your own words that we don't really need in quotes because it doesn't really have life to it? And then also, what do we just not need? So what I like to do is I come up with a color for each one of those that I want to use, and I go through and start highlighting things. So what we would do is we'd go up here and grab the highlighter, and what I'm going to use first is green, and I'm going to use green for my best quotes. So what I'm going to do is start reading through and looking at this. And while you're reading and looking at it, you can clean up quotes. You might have transcribed stuff like if they said you can get rid of that if you help them sound a little better, as long as you're not changing what they're saying. But you can fix their grammar, you can get rid of or you can even get rid of I guesses. Those are sort of placeholder phrases that people are using. So if you see those in there, you can get rid of those. So when we start looking at these quotes, what I would suggest is look and see what part of it feels like it has life. This first quote seems like a lot of facts and information. I'm 10 years old right now. I'll be 12 when I graduate. We could summarize all this. This isn't necessarily a lively quote. So what I'm going to put on this one is I'm going to put yellow, because that means I might use this information, but I'm not going to directly quote that. You might look at some things and not be sure what you want to label it, so you can move past it without labeling it and always come back to it, because I'm just kind of scanning and seeing what we've got here until I see a quote that feels like it's alive. I want to get the person's personality. I want to get that real living content. What are their thoughts? What's the how and why? Those questions where they describe something or tell a story. So the first quote that I really like on here is where she says, "My first day, I felt like everyone was staring at me. I knew where I was going in and that I was in the right places, but I think everyone else just thought I was some kid that got dropped off at the wrong school." I love that quote. That one really feels alive to me, so I'm probably going to use that quote, so I'm highlighting it green. Now, again, the next quote is, "I'm taking all advanced core classes, theater arts, and photography." That is not something I would want to direct quote. That's boring. I can summarize that for them. I might use that information, but I'm going to say it myself. As we go through this, I liked this quote a lot. So far, the classes are not too hard. The hardest part has been lugging my backpack every day. It's so heavy. Some days I feel like I'm going to tip over. There's more to this, but I just like that part of the quote. So I'm going to highlight that in green because I like that. This thing about the iPads, this is not really what we're writing about. That seems like unnecessary info. I'm going to put that in red. I don't need that. Seriously though, everything's been great. All the students have been really nice to me and the teachers are awesome. Okay, we may use that. I'm going to leave that one blank for now. I like this one right here. "I love my mom and she's a good teacher, but the same teacher for 8 hours a day for 6 years gets a little boring," because this girl was homeschooled. She was aware of that, and that's the main reason I'm here. There's a why. All right, here's a why. We might want to use that. And I'll probably tag this sentence on too. I like this, and just because we're highlighting all this green doesn't mean that all of this will make it to the article. These are just things that we think are pretty good quotes. Here's some good information, but I don't think that's something we need to quote. I'm going to put that in yellow. Let's see. Put that in yellow. And then I like this quote. This one has a little life to it. You see what I'm saying when I say it has life to it? It feels like they're telling sort of a story. I like that. Again, if I look at this, the learning has always come easy to me. My mom said I was reading at age 2. This is not a lively quote, but all of this information is interesting. It just doesn't make a great quote. So I'm going to highlight this yellow because this is info we might use. This is a little more lively. I'm talking about what they like, what they're interested in. So I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to say that's a maybe. That's green. This says on May 1st I'm going to be featured on this PBS show called Little Geniuses. Okay. You know, this is pretty interesting, but this is sort of information we could probably summarize. But then this is pretty good. I like this. It's not as cool as it sounds. I am only in the documentary for about 4 minutes. I saw an early release, and I'm a little embarrassed by my interview. I sound like kind of a snob. That's interesting. That's different. That's lively. That's the only bad thing about being smart. When I talk about it, I sound conceited. I'm probably smarter than a lot of other kids, but I stink at all sports. So I like this. I like this too. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and this whole last part, I like it. I might use parts of that. So I'm going to say green, that's really good. This is maybe, I'm going to go back to this part and say, okay, that's maybe yellow. I don't think we need to directly quote that. So when we look at this and I go through, we can look at some of these things that it says here and decide. This is all information that's like just info that we're going to need to share, but it doesn't need to be quoted. Again, here, this is info, but I don't think we need to directly quote it. So what you would do is you would go through all of these interviews and do that, right? And figure out what are the things that make the good quotes and what are the things that's info that you need to include and what do you just not really need. And once you've done this, you're going to be ready to start piecing together that article, and that's in the next video.